All right, this one is Standard 10, Leadership and Collaboration. And for this standard, the teachers, we held a meeting to talk about developing a new system of assessing benchmarks for the kids.
Right.
Twice a year and in a kind of progressive and cumulative way, which we don't currently have. So the first element was supporting and advocating students.
Right.
And the learning environment as well, and recognizing when a system may be needed. So this is kind of a big thing to do, but the teachers have been talking about it for quite a while, how we don't have anything like this.
Right.
And it would kind of coordinate all the teachers in the school if we all had a shared vision.
Right.
And would help, the students, because we could make sure that when they're transitioning from one classroom to another, that most of their benchmarks are, scaffolded and sequenced correctly.
Right.
So they're not expected to jump into something when maybe they don't have the primary skills ready to do it.
Right. So for this, we have already begun presently changing our original system of assessment progress for the kids, where it might have worked in the past, where we had smaller groups or less need for such communication. Maybe no, I guess we always needed it, and we've recognized that. And so as a president, we've started to go over the ideas and plans on how to change our assessment program, our assessment styles. We have the original papers the way we do it right now, but we're trying to see where we can, and we're talking about what we should be recognizing, passing on to the next group. We're not finished with that, right?
Not yet.
Yeah. So that's what we've been talking about for a while, and I think it's a good change. Because yes, we do need more. I think all of us have, especially some of us have been around with the company for long enough to see that and recognize that we do need some of these changes. So you started that right there. I'd say outstanding, as we've already started it, and you had some ideas. You already showed some of the templates, like what are some ways that we can fix our current assessments to make them better, to move along for the other students and for the teachers to see.
And I think it would be nice to have, because it would help prevent any kids from slipping through the cracks in any sort of specific category.
Right.
But it'll also hold all the kids up to a relatively high standard. So it sets goals, but also helps us monitor them to make sure that they're not falling behind anywhere.
Right. And so I chose outstanding because obviously you recognized the assessment flaws that were right now with the system we're using. So outstanding for recognizing and for beginning the changes needed for us to fix that assessment, make it easier.
Great. The next one was respect for families. So respecting families' beliefs, norms, and expectations, and working collaboratively with students and families.
Right.
I think this is one of the areas where this will be a big help. Our current assessment forms, they don't really say when anything is supposed to be accomplished.
Right.
And so it can be confusing in conferences trying to communicate to a parent no, this is marked low, but that's because we won't be really studying that until next term. So if we had a clear way to communicate with parents, no, this is exactly the skill set they should have here at this time.
Right.
Or if there's something lacking, saying, they've been working on this for a year, we would hope that he would be scoring a little higher, because in the next grade level he's going to have more responsibility. So being able to look to the future,
right,
and look at the present when we talk to the parents.
Yeah, and I think because you as well, especially, you are in, and I've said this before, you're in constant communication with the parents, and if there is a problem that arises, whether it's their reading abilities or some kind of a small disciplinary thing that's happening, you do talk to the parents, letting them know. And it's not just that you're bringing this up to the parents, but also well, it seems like you're opening up a dialogue with them, wanting to get some kind of feedback on what they think that should be done as well. That's on a daily thing as well.
Yeah. The thing I think would be nice about this is having, hard evidence for a lot of those things.
Right.
Which we don't have now. We can talk to the parents about what we see and maybe what we've assessed, but we don't have something to go show them and say, this is where they are now, according to the benchmarks we've made.
Right.
So I think it would make that conversation a lot easier.
Yeah, have some kind of proof there.
Yeah, and some of the expectations from the parents too. I think some of our parents have strong, requests from us, especially the older kids when they're thinking about applying for elementary schools.
Oh, right, yeah.
So if we had, if we were able to say, if they ask us a question about something specific, being able to say, we've been working on this since this period, or, this is something that we've kind of set a target for next year. So by the time they graduate, if they stay and complete the whole program, they will hopefully have, achieved some proficiency there.
Right.
So we'd be able to just talk more easily with the parents about those sorts of expectations.
So I would say, because of that, because we do talk to the parents, especially the ones that are graduating out and moving on to, whether they're graduating out or not, or their plans are to go to a specific elementary school, especially in this country, Japan, where the private schools have certain demands, and they talk to us, and from there you do assess them. I say outstanding. Yeah, outstanding.
Yeah, and I just remembered another thing that was in the video. One of the early conversations we had about this, one of the teachers was talking about some students where, telling the parents about something the student was kind of lagging behind in a skill.
Right.
How parents after a conference would, follow through at home for like a week.
Yes.
And then just kind of stop.
Right.
But if the parents had in hand something that was telling them, this is a specific area where your student might be falling behind a little bit.
Right.
They know what specific things they might be able to help with at home.
Right.
And it would be maybe a constant reminder of we need to work together to get this skill up, because the skill, the demands are going to increase as he gets older.
Right.
So.
Outstanding.
The next was schools as organizations. So the impact of historical, cultural, political, and social context on schools and or one's own classroom. So I guess the way I thought about this was, as far as putting in a historical context, a lot of these assessments were made when the school system was much smaller, when it was a school.
Right.
Where, you had a lot of veteran staff who could kind of oversee a lot of new teachers, and it seems like constant supervision, which I think the main school still has, but now there's more and more satellite schools, which we were one of, and so we don't have as much kind of people supervising us to kind of keep us on track if maybe we're not hitting certain points.
Right.
So and we're bringing in new teachers all the time, so as the school grows, more tools like this I think will be necessary. What do you think?
I think, there's been a major change, obviously, from the very beginning. It was a more personal collaboration with each other, with all the teachers. When it was a smaller, as you said, it was just one school at the time, to where it's now. We do have measures. We have to all, I wouldn't say guidelines. Especially with the phonics, because that's what the school's all about. We have to hit those benchmarks in the phonics, whether it's in the international program or in the afternoon. So I'm having trouble with this one. With the change that's coming along, I agree. There needs to be more structure, and I believe that that's what you're recognizing, that there needs to be more structure and maybe written guidelines on for not just for the new teachers, but for the old teachers, so that if the point comes across with the new teachers, for the old teachers to talk to them as well, so it doesn't just have to be a direct management situation.
Yes.
So I think if that's what you mean,
basically,
as we grow, we need to have a much more structured guidelines of written both there, on whether it's training or the benchmarks that need to be hit with each individual class, in order for the same way that in the past, the same success that made the school successful can continue as it grows bigger, so that it's a form of communication, I suppose. Like,
yeah, and at the same time, like not telling new teachers, even old teachers, what to teach, but just things to make sure they are teaching.
Yeah.
So without being like restrictive on what teachers are doing, but more just kind of giving ourselves to a little warning system to make sure that we're hitting the things we should be hitting.
Yeah, because I think as it gets bigger, I think a lot of those original benchmarks that were there get lost along the way if they're not, I mean, basically put in writing. Yeah,
because right now with it getting so spread out, if it's not in writing, there isn't as much support for it.
Right.
Then the other, as far as like the larger context of the school, like political, cultural, social, I think the fact that most of our kids try to move on to relatively competitive elementary schools,
right,
where, you know, a lot of the skills that we might focus on in these assessments might be more motor skills or behavioral, and those are things that they really look at in entrance examinations for elementary schools.
Right.
So if we're really holding our kids up to high standards across the board, not just in the phonics and math curriculum sense, it'll probably help a lot of these kids get into these schools. And a lot of the parents, I think, send their kids here because they want their kids to get into a good elementary school.
Yeah, so I'd say, and we recognize that, not only through talking with the parents, but obviously throughout the years we've had, I mean, it's kind of repeats itself with the older siblings as well. So we know I'd say culturally it's a different style of teaching preparation for elementary schools than where it'd be in the US. We recognize that, and we're willing to work with that as well and support that as well. So I'd say outstanding.
Great. And then there's one more, which is involvement in school-wide efforts. So, again, this is something I've been thinking about doing for a number of years. And right now we've got a really great proactive staff, and everybody seems really on board with trying to make something like this together. And I think that working collaboratively on this is the only way it could really succeed.
Right.
You know, we all need to be communicating, and even by working on this together, I think it will increase the teacher communication in the school just generally. So I think we need to work together to make it, and to make it effective. And I think making it will also make us more communicative with each other generally. And it does kind of unify the school in terms of goals.
Right.
And it is basically a system for like monitoring our progress. And I think the way we've been talking about it is building it over time, so not trying to make it set in stone when we finish it, kind of leaving it open and maybe reassessing after 6 months or a year if things were maybe benchmarks are set in the wrong place. So kind of keeping it collaborative and keeping it flexible.
Right.
And yeah, everybody being able to take ownership of it.
Yeah, you had a couple of projects throughout the year, and I've only been with this school per se for the last 2 years. So, but from the first meeting we've had, I've seen that you've been very forward about trying to change some of these things about the school, and you've collaborated with a lot of the teachers. And I mean, we've had some new teachers that weren't really, they weren't familiar with what you needed. So you've had these meetings with us on varied occasions. This is an interesting one. We've talked about it. You're talking about like the school rules. We had you put together the school rules that all classes can hang in front of their inside their classroom, and you started the new assessments.
Trying to get a lot of our annual events kind of like written and codified, so everybody's got open access to all the events that are coming up.
This is with the spring schools and summer schools. It's all organized there for anyone that needs to look in it, whether they're the new teachers or the old teachers. They're able to look in there, and we always talk about those things. Outstanding. Like it's an organized. It's more organized than it's organized. It's organized here. It's quite organized in that sense.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
Last one was